it's the final countdown. They're all giving up. They know they can't hold back the hyperinflation that's coming. And with China now just printing to save the skin of the communist elites, our Fed had no choice but to follow suit, or the Chinese yuan will just wash over the whole world and cause a global collapse.
Hey friends, welcome back. Thank you so very much for tuning in. I'm going to try to be picking up the pace here throughout the rest of January and into February because there's just so much to talk about. And on Friday, we saw gold and silver pop. And guys, if you don't think that silver is real money, that's what the bankers want you to think. Look at these charts. I'll put them up on the screen right now. Gold and silver moving in tandem. The charts look identical. Meanwhile, they tell you silver has been demonetized and gold is nothing but a barbarous relic. Also on Friday, the dollar got rocked. I have the founder of Trade Genius, Bob Kudla, on to talk about all of it and so much more. Bob, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year. Thanks for coming back on. First, let me ask you about that gold and silver pop. Did you see that chart? They tell us that silver's been demonetized and it just isn't really a precious metal. I don't buy it.
Oh yeah, they're crazy. I mean, there's only 54 parts per billion of silver in the world. It's very precious. And not just as a precious metal or a currency, in the solar energy business, every solar panel has 2 ounces of silver on it. We've been running a deficit on silver for the last 10 years. And you look no further than JP Morgan Chase. They own 54 million ounces of silver in their vaults. They know it's coming. And today, or yesterday, actually, when the Fed capitulated on the balance sheet, their reduction, the gold and silver, that's all excuse it needed to go, because now, it's just like that, Europa music video. It's the final countdown. They're all giving up. They know they can't hold back the hyperinflation that's coming. And with China now just printing to save the skin of the communist elites, our Fed had no choice but to follow suit, or the Chinese yuan will just wash over the whole world and cause a global collapse. So, man, it was just an amazing day. And all the miners have popped too. And we've been telling them, you and I have been talking for months now. I've been saying that's our theme. Stock market's going to be in trouble. Gold, silver, uranium, and the other precious palladium and platinum, along with cryptocurrencies when the banks start to roll over, are all going to pop. And we were validated today. All of our positions just rocketed, Sean.
Well, I want to share this with folks too, and I'll get back to this dollar being rocked idea because I wanted to give an example of that. So I did a little bit of searching, and I do have one really quantifiable example of how quickly the dollar could collapse. But getting back to Trade Genius, I signed up for your service and I'm getting pinged on my phone multiple times a day with exactly what to do and when to do it. And so when we talk about gold and silver popping, of course, with the coming global calamity, an economic collapse, perhaps worldwide, or a recession, possibly a Great Depression, it makes sense to buy physical gold and silver, of course, but there's other ways to profit. Tell us about some of the ways people can make money no matter what the markets do.
Well, let's talk gold and silver first. So we have an algorithm that you're getting the signals on today. And if you notice, everything you bought, even MAG, we just posted out earlier this week too, up 11% today, is that we see the buying pressure coming in ahead of the public. And so we're able to alert people to the fact that money's starting to move in under the surface, and then you get in those trades and you make money. Now, that's when things are going up. And when things are going down, there are ETFs called exchange traded funds that actually will trade against the market going the other way. So it's a safe way for people like you and I to be able to short the market without putting ourselves at undue risk, and it follows the same rules. So we don't care if the market is going up or going down. The other thing too, Sean, is that there's a bull market somewhere always. Like the stock market and gold markets have been working in opposite of each other. So as the stock market starts to suffer, gold and silver and the miners are going to do really well. In fact, the Great Depression, gold miners were the only place that people made money in a decade. And so that's a good place to be. And in the past, bonds were a good place to be, but I don't know if we're going to have that this time because of the people just bailing out of anything with debt. And I think that's where cryptocurrencies are going to come in its stead, and where people can then hop out of the banking system. So those are the areas that we've been telling people to watch, and where you can make money. And then, if things don't look good anywhere, our system will tell you to get out, and you just sit in good old cash until the next opportunity presents itself. But that's not been the case. We've been having just rolling trades coming in nearly every day. And in fact, on Friday, we had so many buy signals that we just didn't feel right just putting them all out and overwhelming everybody. It was that kind of day. And when you see those kind of days, that means there's a strategic change in direction, and big money is now coming in for a long trade. And when I mean long-term trades, months instead of days and weeks. So I think we have a change in direction in the market and in the economy, Sean, and people need to pay attention to it.
All right, I'll put the link for Trade Genius below, and I know you're offering some specials for my listeners. I like this idea with Trade Genius. You never have to trade alone. Okay, now I want to get back to the dollar here, Bob. Now, on Friday, Zero Hedge, of course, Zero Hedge isn't what it used to be, in my opinion. Zero Hedge used to be on the cutting edge of real news, and now I see a lot of headlines that are skewing very kind of anti-Trump, more pro-establishment, but I still go to Zero Hedge every single day, and here's their headline late in the afternoon on Friday was gold jumps, dollar dumps as Trump folds, Fed holds. And so I wanted to see what the dollar was up to. Here's one quantifiable, guys. Just 2 weeks ago, a British pound was worth $1.25 USD. Today, it's worth $1.32 USD. That is a huge move in terms of currencies. So every $1,250 is now worth $1,321 if you're swapping British pounds for dollars. Guys, that's just one example of how quickly this watershed moment could occur if everyone were to abandon the dollar at once. I don't see that happening. Do you, Bob? We don't see that happening anytime soon, right?
No, I think that's phase two, Sean. I think the next phase is you're going to see China collapse, and you'll see the Japanese yen collapse, and you'll see Europe collapse. And one of those three are going to collapse in currency against the dollar first. But we'll see. What we're seeing now, though, is very important. I think you touched on it. Is now the dollar and gold gold is starting to move away from the dollar, and that means that all the currencies are starting to de-link in value to things that people are going to need. You're talking food, you're talking oil, you're talking gold, you're talking industrial metals. All those things are going to become more expensive, and it's going to make it harder and harder for the regular and average American to survive. And that's why you have to hedge these things, and that's why you need to be in things that are going to move up. But to your point, probably in 2 or 3 years is then when the whole caboodle collapses, and then people aren't going to want anything other than something that's backed by something like gold and silver.
Yeah, I agree with you. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, though, getting back to this idea of a government shutdown and Trump being backed into a corner, my question for you is, given the liberal lunacy that we see coming from the hardcore left, the Schumers, the Pelosi's, the Feinsteins, who has really backed themselves into the corner over this government shutdown, which is really over border security? It's not over immigration or human rights. It's over border security. How does Trump not have the upper hand? I think if we actually had honest nationwide polls, it would show that he does. But the media says he's backed into a corner.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I think this is a very shrewd negotiating tactic. What he's doing is he's showing the American people just how accommodating and agreeable he is. And he constantly is making the case. Every time he does this, he lets a little bit more rope out, and he just tells the American people, look, more people are dying from drug overdoses than the Vietnam War. More people are dying from this. More wages are going down because of that. And then what he's saying is that, look, I offered him DACA. This time he goes, look, I offered to open up the government. I offered to have a bipartisan committee. I offered him to have a blue ribbon commission of the people who are living on the border. And then at the very end, he says, I did everything I could, but I'm the president of the United States, and I have to defend the border of our country. And you can make a decision of not voting me in next election, but I'm going to do what's right instead of what's politically expedient. And he hasn't trapped. There's no way. You look at the polls of the Hispanic community, they went up 17% during this shutdown. These people know. They're not stupid. They know who gets affected by this. All those people come into their communities and screw their lives up. And they're silent. They can't say anything. And so, he's their voice, and the only way they can express that voice, polling and voting. So I'm not too worried about it. I think he was smart. I think, this could have turned into a big mess for Trump if all the like TSA guys decided to go out on strike, or something else happened, and and then all of a sudden somebody gets hurt or killed, or a plane crashes. He was smart to do what he did.
Yeah, let me get back to the liberal lunacy here in a minute, because honestly, these people, Schumer, Pelosi, Feinstein, Clinton, they would run this country into the ground just like Venezuela if they were given the chance, if they had enough power. But we'll get back to that in a second. The other bit of lunacy I need to touch on is Roger Stone was arrested by the FBI in a morning raid on Friday, which I think is just absolutely outrageous. But anyone who listens to Roger Stone on InfoWars, I know a lot of people don't, but for those who do, he has outlined exactly the case the government has against him, which is nothing, but that he would be indicted, he predicted. And in an early morning raid on Friday, Bob, he was arrested by the FBI. He pled not guilty, and he's vowed not to testify against President Trump. Is this just a fishing expedition, or is there 4D chess going on here? Because I know a lot of people think that what happened with General Flynn led to discovery, which leads to where all of the real bodies are buried and the deep state criminals being exposed in some sort of 4D chess match Mueller is playing. Do you buy any of that?
I don't know if Mueller could be playing both sides here. He might be throwing this stuff out at the same time he's unearthing everything. I think what they did with Roger Stone was absolutely over the top. I joked around on Twitter and I said they took 50 FBI agents to arrest a 66-year-old man. I said this is a joke, and I think it's just vindictive, and it's trying to keep everything in the news, for the weekends to keep this Russia thing. What even Russia thing? I mean, Roger came out and basically said that it has nothing to do with Russia, has nothing to do with collusion, has everything to do with them being pissed off at me for not giving them what information they think I have, and number two is that they're trying to catch me in a bunch of misstatements, which it's very difficult, when these things get to court, depending on what he said is, these perjury charges are hard. He could just simply say, look, I'm an old man and I start to forget things,
Right.
and, but I don't worry about Roger Stone too much. I think he's not going to roll over. And Alan Dershowitz came on the air on Friday and basically said the only crimes that Mueller has unearthed so far were after he started his probe. So he's found nothing for the
Well,
whole
you know
reason
what?
why he put it in place.
And that's, sorry to interrupt, but that's exactly what gets me back to the point that if a real investigation is actually being conducted, then the testimony of General Flynn may have led to many, many things that have not been reported publicly. And, this show of force against Roger Stone is really, it must just be for the cameras, because you're right, it's so unnecessary. But at the end of the day, if we don't see real justice, because here's the bitter pill. Let me just go on a rant here for 1 second. Here's the bitter pill, and I'll make the NFL a great example. If there's not integrity in the system, like that Saints non-call with the LA Rams, where the LA Rams clearly, even a blind person would have thrown the flag for pass interference on that late in the game play where the Saints were robbed of going to the Super Bowl.
Crowd's going crazy as there's no flag right on the Saints sideline. Well, if Roby Coleman plays the ball, it's an interception. It's probably going the other way with it. I mean, the ball's on the other side of Roby Coleman, but that should have been a penalty. And John Payton is justifiably upset.
It caused an absolute uproar among sports fans, even on ESPN. Everybody's been talking about it for a week because it calls into question the integrity of the game. Why watch the Super Bowl if the game that got the teams to the Super Bowl has no integrity, if the refs have no integrity, if our justice system has no integrity, if Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and all of those real criminals who actually colluded with Russia, Uranium One, and so many other crimes, if those people aren't perp-walked, but only Roger Stone is, then there is no integrity in the system. And at what point do we see a revolution because people get outraged, Bob? You know how mad this stuff makes me. Unless there is 4D chess being played that we just don't know about, this arrest of Roger Stone shows what a farce this system is.
Oh yeah, look how fast in Paris, it turned from being annoyed at attacks into a conflagration. I don't know when the next straw is going to break the camel's back here. I think I agree with you. I think if at the end of the day there's no indictments the other way, I just think that we're going to go into a dark place here in America. I don't know what that's going to be, but a lot of people here, I know people that I hang with are like, this is just starting to get to a point of ridiculousness that, you hear there's 1,100 grand jury, indictments out there, but it's been 3.5 years and there's nothing coming out. And if they skate through the next election on this, I think, the worst thing, I'll put it this way, the worst thing that can happen to the political elite is for people to tune out. People always think it's revolution, but look, you opt out, you put the system out faster than anything else. This is a debt-based system. If people stop borrowing, if people started buying gold and silver, if people stop working so hard, the whole thing collapses on these guys. And I think that's what's going to happen. People are just going to give up and tune out. And they got to realize the people that they're mocking the most are the most productive. And if those are the people give up, there's nothing here. And then I think revolution will happen. It'll be because of the absence of the good people.
You make a great point, though, about France and the yellow vests. Those protests, I got to give it to the French. They are not giving in and giving up. If anything, this thing is starting to fester and spread throughout the EU. And I think it just speaks to the power of the people. Once they're informed, and I was shocked that the French weren't informed, that Macron was obviously a Rothschild banker puppet, which I and so many others tried to alert the world to, but our reach is certainly not far enough to reach all of the people in France. And they didn't get Le Pen into office. They got the Rothschild puppet. And now they found out who he is, who he really is, and he's a bad, bad guy. And that's why they're marching in the streets. And that's ultimately what needs to happen here if the deep state topples Trump and inserts one of their puppets like Hillary Clinton. Because you know what these people are going to give us, Bob? I'll give you a great example. This past week, the New York Senate passed an abortion on demand law. Absolutely right up to the day before birth, if a woman, based on her health decisions, her psychology, stress, her age, any of those reasons can be cited as a reason to abort. And guess what? This stinking demonic bill doesn't even require a doctor to do the procedure. That's how evil these people are. And I'm going to play this clip for you, Bob, right now. This is from a local news report in New York after the passage of this demonic bill, and here's how Democrats feel about it.
Democrats say voters put them in control to pass progressive legislation, and the Reproductive Health Act is one of the first on a long list of bills Republicans can no longer stop.
Bob, do you believe that? The Democrats feel they've been enshrined, they've been appointed to pass into law progressive laws like abortion on demand. This is a slippery slope into the abyss.
It's disgusting and personal to me because my parents adopted a half white, half African American son who's my brother today. And my daughter, we adopted, is half white, half Hispanic American. And so this notion that these are unwanted children, it makes me want to throw up. And there's millions of families out there that would just love the chance to love on these kids. And because somebody doesn't want to be bothered, they kill it. There's no words for me on this. I can't even argue with people who think this is a good idea. It just makes me ill. But, as a God-fearing person is that we know this evil's coming. And it's just sad that we have to see it in our lifetime.
You just hit the nail on the head. God-fearing. If you're a God-fearing person, it would scare the crap out of you to vote for something as evil as this bill. Because at what point does abortion become murder? I mean, literally, Bob, a 9-month baby ready to be born inside the mother's womb, and on a whim she decides to abort it, which is to kill it, simply because it's still inside her, as opposed to the head coming out of the vagina, at which point it's considered a live, actual human being. This is lunacy. This is Moloch-level child sacrifice, absolute lunacy, and it needs to be said because these are the same people, the same liberal media and liberal crazy politicians and liberal Hollywood nuts that came after the Covington Catholic kids for standing in their own space where they were approached after a March for Life. Bob, that's the punchline to that whole story. These kids marched for life, and the media went out of their way to lambast them and try to defame and slander them. That's what we're up against, a crooked media and a crooked Washington.
Yeah, we're dealing with demonic spirits and powers here. Well, here's the ironic thing. They want to kill all the kids here, but then they want to bring all the kids in from Mexico and Central America.
Yeah.
And so I just don't quite get it, and it just like, I don't know. I can't even rationalize their thing, other than these kids are the ones that are coming over can vote faster. I just don't understand. And it's just amazing to me, and that people can even justify or rationalize this as a choice, and so, what can I say?
Well, and look, I'm not impugning anyone who in their past was involved in an abortion. Everybody's able to be forgiven, and I'm not the judge and jury here. I just am saying that these liberal nuts in New York are out of their minds to allow this, because it is butchery. It is murder. At what point does life become life? There's the great debate. I was watching Owen Benjamin do a live feed about this, and he said, that's the slippery slope. If you can't decide that life is life at inception, then when is it? A day before it's supposed to be born in the 9th month? Or what? Maybe a day after it's been born. See, that's where they're taking us. It's the Communist Manifesto that these people are into. It's not a God-fearing society, and it's certainly not the Constitution and the rule of law that they're into. And that's why they are the enemies of the people. And look, I'll leave you with this, guys, as we get away from this subject. This was the reaction in the New York Senate upon the passage of that bill. Bob, they cheered. They cheered as though they'd done something wonderful for humanity. And meanwhile, I did a little research on that topic, abortion in New York City. Do you know that for every 1,000 live births in 2015, there were more than 500 abortions? More than 1 in 3 babies were already being aborted. And these people thought they needed to update their outdated abortion laws. It just doesn't pass the smell test, Bob. We all know something's very, very wrong. And if these Democrats ever get back in control of the White House and control the Senate and Congress, oh my God, Katie, bar the door, say goodnight.
Yeah, and to slide us back, from this abortion to communist, the Federal Reserve systems around the world were set up to actually instill communism around the world, because it forces all the property and all the assets to those central banks, which the bankers own. So therefore, everybody eventually loses their property rights. And now you got Elizabeth Warren out there and OAC out there talking about 70% income taxes and 2% wealth taxes. And, they're coming for all the marbles. They think they smell some sort of blood out there. And it's going to be, these next 2 years are going to be probably eye-opening for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's already been eye-opening for a lot of people. And certainly there was a great awakening happening, because that's why Trump was elected. He wasn't elected by Russian bots or Russian infiltration of our election. Everybody knows that, Bob. We could see the people showing up to see him speak in the tens of thousands. Those weren't Russians. They were actual American voters who then showed up to vote. So again, it gets back to this insane Mueller witch hunt, right? All about Russian hacking. Russians hacked the election. It wasn't Russians. The DNC leaks the emails. That was all Seth Rich, Bob. I mean, why don't we ever hear that? I'm sure General Flynn knows that. I'm sure Mueller has been told that. Kim.com offered his testimony, basically proving, he says, he has the proof that Seth Rich was the email leaker, the DNC email leaker, and provided those emails, I believe, through Kim.com to WikiLeaks. Why don't we ever hear that? We only hear that from the real media, not the fake media.
I think they're afraid if they pull on that thread, the whole thing comes tumbling down. And I think there's just a lot of people cross-protecting each other, because I think there's a lot of people dirty here. And I think it'll be, I think they probably fear the consequences of this whole thing coming out into the open, because this is more than just a Democrat thing. It's the whole power elite in that part of the world that been in charge for so long. The New York, Washington, San Francisco, LA that matrix, of control over us. They're all interconnected in their evil and their manipulation. And, so I think once it all goes, it goes. And I think that's why they turned the tech guys on to suppress social media. And you got, LA putting their propaganda out, and New York trying to control the narrative on the economic front. And you got DC in the political base. I mean, this is where it's all at. And I think they're all connected with each other.
Yeah, they are. And you're right. If they pull on that thread, which I hope is happening, I hope the thread has been pulled on, and I hope that there are tribunals happening and military court hearings happening. I hope those things are happening, Bob, because if you pull on the thread, it's going to expose Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Donna Brazile, right on down the line, Loretta Lynch, Obama. They were all involved in some of the most high crimes and misdemeanors in the history of our country. We're talking treason and sedition. All right, as we wrap this up, what is your prediction for the economy in 2019? We see tumbling Asian exports, which confirm a global earnings recession. We're hearing about a recession in this country. Has it already begun? Or when will we actually start to feel the effects?
Yeah, so I mean, our view is that, I think 2019, the economy is going to do fine. I think going into 2020 is when the recession is going to hit. But I think what's happening now is you're starting to see what I started this conversation on a final countdown, is that they're gonna blow the doors off of spending. And I think that we're gonna get a big lift in inflation. We're gonna get a big lift in the commodity prices. And just like in 2007 and 2008, those things are going to be the seeds of a really, really nasty recession, if not a depression. But I think it's a year to 6 quarters away, and it's probably going to show up sometime in the summer before the next election, and so that's why I've been telling people, please, you've been given a gift on getting on the stock market. Now you've been given a gift to get into the gold and silver and the miners, and then that's where you need to put your money, and that's where you need to put your efforts, and then get out of debt as fast as you can, and make sure you got your friends and your family and your network together, because I think we're all going to need to support each other.
All right. And if folks want to get a little hand-holding from Trade Genius, I'll put the link below. And you're offering special deals through, I think, the end of this month, right?
That's right. To the end of the month, we put some special bundles together for your listeners, Sean, and just check us out, tradelikeagenius.com. You can chat us, you can email us, you can call us, and we'll be happy to help you get into the right plan, and for beginner or for even advanced traders. And there's some really cool ways in which you can help you make money, no matter how big your capital or your portfolio or how much money you have to learn to trade. We can help you regardless.
All right. Very good. Bob, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. Guys, our guest has been Bob Kudla from Trade Genius. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Sean.
All right. And guys, thanks so much for tuning in. So much more to come in the coming weeks ahead. So please do stay tuned. And for real news 24/7, visit us at sgtreport.com. Thanks, guys. God bless. Bye-bye.
The only thing that freezes Nathan Phillips is one of the refrigerators he was supposed to be repairing while he was AWOL in Nebraska while he was pretending to be a recon ranger in Vietnam. Wait, what?